an exercise with mortality in its name. Now, I know you'd be shocked to think that I'd be doing a podcast about that, but this is an exercise that is extensively used and been around for a long time. It's also an effective exercise for training athletes, but too many times it is either avoided because of an injury or avoided because of risk of an injury. But it has become one of the most effective exercises for any type of training when done correctly. Today I have our exercise coordinator for athletes, Charlie Marlowe, and our Eastern Shore director, Joshua Gooch, joining me today to talk about their favorite lift, the deadlift, today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Hey, good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personal Edge Fitness. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Deadlift Podcast. And the reason I'm being flanked by two individuals today is because both of these guys absolutely love this exercise, and I'm afraid I would have started a fight between. In fact, that's the reason I'm sitting in between them, because I'm not sure which one of them. I don't think they can agree which one of them likes it more. So, but of course, I'm talking about my guest over here, Joshua Gooch. He's our Eastern Shore director, and also Charlie Marlowe is a client coordinator and our athletes coordinator. So, talking about the deadlift. Now, before we get into this, let me tell you how to get in touch with us. If you're interested in this podcast, or have any questions about it, or have any questions dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness, please reach out at 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That, of course, is also our website, personaledgefitness.com, and our Facebook page, Personal Edge Fitness. Hit me up on Twitter or X at Team PE. We're going to dive headfirst into this. This is an exercise that we use a lot in the facility. It is incredibly beneficial, but there's so many misconceptions about this particular exercise. But you guys have taken it to a new level. Y'all actually make kind of a challenge or a game about this. Charlie, tell us, what is this Deadcember we've got coming up?
Josh and I are very passionate about deadlifting, mainly because, like you said, the many misconceptions that come along with it. And so, we've really just been doing this thing called Deadcember, which is, it started on social media by an equipment company called Sore Necks. And literally, it's just a month long of deadlifting, right? Every day, Monday through Friday. It doesn't matter. You get the weekends off. Monday through Friday, you're deadlifting.
You sure this wasn't like an orthopedic group that came up with this whole challenge or whatever? You sure it was an equipment company?
Yeah, it could be. But two things that I really like about Deadcember is, one is it's a month of just challenging yourself past your limits. Sure. There's a quote that I really like in a book I'm reading, and it says, people get caught up in the fact that they have limits, that they rarely exert the effort required to try to reach them or try to get close to them. Yeah. And so, finding something to commit to and to finish it and actually see it out is something that I think both of us have really, seen the fruit of that and really been able to grow from that and push our limits. Yeah. Another quote from that book is, the last mile is always the least crowded. I think Josh and I can relate in that sense, where right. You're getting towards the end of the month and you're like, man, this is really tough. I could probably take a day of rest, but to see yourself finish through the process, right, and then see, the other people that are doing it alongside with you posted on social media, that's definitely encouraging as well.
He's not the only one in this game. I mean, you've drank the Kool-Aid too, evidently.
Oh, sipped it, gulped it, sucked it on down. But no, I like it, but kind of going back to why I like deadlifts to begin with and why I'm in this whole fitness gig kind of thing is there's always progress. There's a sense of, okay, I can continue to progress, whether it's I can continue to add weight, I can continue to add repetition, shorter recovery, whatever that is. But with the deadlift, why I like it so much is you either are doing it or you're not. That bar is either coming up off the floor or it's not. There's no faking it. As far as that exercise. It's not going to lie to you. Yeah, no, absolutely not. You kind of, you pick it up off the floor, you set it down. There's, right, again, something instinctual about that.
When I talk about the deadlift, I talk about the fact that no matter what, whether you work out or not, you're going to do that motion.
Oh, yeah, you do it.
I mean, you're
almost every day.
No matter what. So, in fact, get into that a little bit. So, it's kind of scary for some people that aren't familiar with it because it does start with the word dead. So, break it down, man.
Well,
what is the deadlift?
And Charlie, and disagree with me if you will, but it's kind of like all the the dead means is the bar or whatever instrument that you're using, whether that's a dumbbell, a kettlebell, a grocery bag, whatever that is sitting on the floor. And you're just picking it up. Is essentially just to break it down, you're just picking up a load, a weight off of the floor. And that's what the exercise
Dead weight.
is. Dead weight. Yep.
It's not because we have a high mortality rate with this particular exercise. It happens to be dealing with dead weight. And that's why I said, I mean, and I'm sure y'all talk to your clients about this a lot, but y'all know what I do on the side. I'm in animal rescue, so I talk to people a lot about all things for dogs, and I talk about picking up a bag of dog food.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're picking up off the floor, you're basically involved in a deadlift.
Doing a deadlift.
Right.
And with that, I know, again, to the people familiar with the movement or have seen the movement, I'm sure you have if you spent any amount of time on social media, there is some misconceptions that come with it. One of those, the biggest, I think, is, Josh, isn't it bad for my back? Isn't it awful? Isn't this lift, me bending over, picking up something, isn't it bad for my back? And I disagree with that highly.
Actually, we're built to do that.
We are.
Yeah, most definitely. I'd say the deadlift is probably one of the most functional exercises and the most important for building up your posterior chain, which is your back, your glutes, your hamstrings. And so that's one of the reasons that we're so passionate about it. I posted a post yesterday on our page for the athletes, and it was our Tuesday tip. One of the things I said was you can't fire a cannon out of a canoe.
Yeah.
Meaning if you don't have the stability to support the force that you're trying to produce, then it's not going to be as effective. It's not going to explode out of there like you would if it was placed on solid ground, if it had some support anchoring it down. And so in the same way, building a strong posterior backside is only going to benefit you on the front side. And so you can't only train the mirror muscles, the chest, biceps, quads, the things you see in the mirror. It's very important to train the things on the back as well. Right.
Give me a breakdown. Now, you can do this in a video. I know that's going to supplement. We're going to have a video come out that's going to supplement this podcast so you can see kind of visually what we're talking about. But give me a basic breakdown of just walk somebody through words of the exercise itself.
If you were to talk to Josh, he might give you a different answer.
See why I have to stay between the two of them?
Charlie.
Because, you see, we do the deadlift very differently. There's actually a big divide between the deadlift community. So there's two main
We got an East Coast, West Coast thing going on here. So
there's two main forms of deadlifting. You got the sumo stance, which is the more dominant and the
lesser
preferred stance.
Lesser
and
version.
And then you've got the conventional stance, which is more your mainstream. But really, though, so the sumo is what I do. Josh does conventional the majority of the time. And for me personally, sumo is more of a wider stance. It's going to target your glutes more. Rather, conventional will target more of your low back. Both are great exercises. They just each are built for a specific purpose, right? And so for me, you're going to start with sumo stance. It's going to be a wide stance. You're going to drop down to the bar, and the big thing that I teach is bracing your core. I think that is a big fault that people don't do when they go to pick something up off the floor, no matter what, and they don't brace, and then that's when something might happen. And then from there, just really focus on squeezing your back together, and then just driving your hips straight up, and try not to arch your back as you pull. And so that's for me, for sumo, that's what I try to do. Josh, if you want to give any tips on
I was about to say, let's hear from the opposing sides. What differences do you like?
As far as the differences go, I think the biggest is kind of the stance.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a more narrow stance. He's going to take a wider stance. But the cues, the form is still the same. So the three top cues that I use when I'm teaching this lift of how to pick anything up off the floor is, number one, don't move your feet. You see it so many times that people come in, whether it's squatting, which I know y'all already covered last week, but whether it's squatting, deadlifting, is people so many times move their feet. We want to keep those feet rooted, stable. You talk about stability. Keep them set to the floor. The second thing is don't move your back. Okay, the back was made to move. However, when you're lifting weight, the back was not made to move. So as Charlie, you were saying, you want to brace that core. You want to breathe in, stiffen as hard as you can when you go to lift up something. And the other thing, most important, is if you're not bending the back, if you're not moving the feet, not moving the back, you still got to lift this thing up off the floor. Move your hips. That's where power comes from. Yep. Drive that from the hips. So get your hips back, squeeze the glutes, and stand up.
Right. Yep. Of course, you use it with our athletes. I don't know of a single athlete that we have coming in here that y'all don't have deadlifting.
Yeah.
But both you guys work with people in their 80s, even 90s. And I know that you've got a myriad of your entire age spectrum doing this exercise. So one thing, why? Because most people think, of course, that's going to be an injury problem.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that, what about modifications? What about changes that you have to make to the exercise? How can you make it effective for anybody? Why would they want to do it?
To answer that, kind of that last one of why would they want to do it? Well, you talk about that age range of, I've got a toddler at the house. He's gonna deadlift so he can pick up that ball and he can take it to his dad, and his dad can pick him up and let him shoot it in the goal.
Deadlift to deadlift.
That's right. That's right. But you kind of go on and you got someone who, again, they want to go on about their age and whatnot. And I'm not going to get into the weeds of that. But as a grandparent or even a great grandparent, I mean, don't you want to pick that grandchild up off the floor?
Right.
You're essentially doing a deadlift. Yeah. So as far as, and then Charlie, I'll let you hit more of the modifications, but I would say the biggest one is lighten up the load. If they can't get quite to the floor, is lift that object up a little bit, make it a little bit easier for them. So
modifications on that, Charlie?
Yeah, so for me personally, different ways to modify would be just modify the range of motion. So like Josh said, if you're going to pick something off the floor and let's say you can't get all the way down to the floor, you can just raise the floor up to you. So what we'll do is we'll put the bar, the kettlebell or dumbbell on a box and then just raise the floor up. And then over time, gradually lowering that box into where they can lift from the floor. So that's one way to modify. Another one would be just modify the stance. So let's say, somebody has issues with the sumo stance or a conventional stance. Some people even do a hybrid stance, which is like a more in between those two. So being able to change your stance up, there's different ways to do that. And then also just using a regression. So somebody might want to come in and barbell deadlift first day and realize, hey, I'm not ready for that. So we'll put them on a kettlebell or we'll put them on the trap bar, which is a better teaching tool so that whenever they are more experienced, they get some more reps with the movement. They'll feel more confident, we'll feel more confident and get putting them under that load and that demand. And so that's some different ways that we can regress or modify exercises.
And like everything we do, when you and I did the podcast on LTAD, on long-term athletic development, in pretty much everything we do with every single client, there's a process, especially if we gradually lose weight. We're trying to gain strength or what have you. So you're going to have some sort of natural progression. What is the progression of the deadlift? How would you start taking somebody that's never done it before? What would be your progression of the deadlift?
Well, essentially, I'm going to start with, again, teaching them those three cues of just the movement. And then, again, I may not put them, a bar in their hands, but I may use, again, a tool like a dumbbell or a kettlebell. Start off high and, again, work on do they need to work on their range of motion? Can they get to the floor?
Right.
Can they do that? And then gradually progress from there, where we progress the weight that they can handle until they're at a point that we're both satisfied with.
Yeah. Same here. I know it starts with the squat, at least their basic squats.
Yeah.
And I've seen you use a dowel before, just a wood dowel.
One simple way to do that is a 3-point contact drill, which is literally putting a PVC pipe behind somebody's back, and you just teach them how to maintain a neutral spine with that. So as long as you keep the 3 main points of contact being the head, shoulders, and then your low back, and just keeping that bar alongside your back, that's just one of the ways you can teach somebody to, like Josh said, brace your core, not bend through the back while you're lifting. So I found that to be helpful when you're teaching somebody.
We're talking about doing this and, of course, not getting hurt doing it. Yeah. And we're going to get to where this is beneficial, especially with our athletes and what have you. But the thing I'm thinking about, almost every exercise that we do has got prevention in it. What would you say are the prevention benefits of regularly doing deadlifts?
To start off, I mean, to lessen the risk of injury when you're picking something up off the floor. Like I said earlier, with that grandparent who's got to pick their grandchild up, who, whether they can or can't, they want to deep down to do that.
Sure.
So them being able to do that over and over and over again, I mean, is highly beneficial to them, to the athlete that wants to lift as much as they possibly can.
Sure, sure. Yep. It goes back to the dog food example I did a minute ago. If you don't think you deadlift, I promise you're wrong. If you're picking stuff up pretty much below your knees at any point in time, then you're involved in a deadlift. Like you say, we use that for all different age groups, all different ranges, and what have you. But especially with our athletes. And as an athlete coordinator, I mean, I think you guys wake up in the morning to do deadlift. I wanted to ask both your wives if y'all married them because they were okay with the deadlift. I'm serious. But with the athletes, I mean, I see you do that with them a lot. Give us a 4-on-1 on that.
The deadlift, I train that because the hip hinge pattern, like Josh and I've talked about before, it's one of the main movement patterns that we can train. And so being an athlete, like Josh already said, your explosiveness comes through your hips. And so in order to be able to be explosive, you need to know how to drive through your hips. And I think the deadlift is one of the biggest bang for your buck exercises that teaches you how to do that, because it's a full body exercise. You can target a lot of muscles. It's very time efficient. And so we do have a progression, like we've already talked about with our LTAD stages. And the first stage is obviously going to teach the movement, right? So we never want to load somebody up without them having at least a decent idea of, how is this going to feel? What am I supposed to feel? Being able to maintain proper form. And so we would start with the kettlebell deadlift and then progress them all the way up until a certain weight. And then from there, we'd move them on to the trap bar. Because again, it's just another.
This is the triangular. Well, you'll probably have it in the video.
Yeah, I'll do it in the video. But it's a hexagon bar where instead of the weight being out in front of you, it's off to the side, and so the weight distribution doesn't pull you forward. And so somebody who's not as experienced with the deadlift might experience some forward weight shift, and then put them in a potentially compromised position. So that's why we use the trap bar, just to reinforce that form. And then once they get to a point where they're very experienced with the deadlift, trap bar deadlift, they're kind of maxing out to where we can get on the bar, then we'll load up a barbell and then use either a conventional or sumo stance there.
Sure. It's funny, from buying equipment, I know about this, that we got a trap bar over in our Mobile location, and all of a sudden, all that meant was that we didn't have one in our Eastern Shore location, and Josh was sure to let me know that until we got one over there. So, but I would think also with the narrow stance that you prefer, the trap bar would be comfortable. It's comfortable for a lot of people to start there or go to that progression.
Yeah, because it tends not to be, you don't have to drop quite so low in that when you're using that bar.
Right. So. Right. I got to get back to this December. Where are we right now in our predictions for December? What are our goals here?
My goal is to be able to finish the entire month. No, I'm kidding. No.
Can we get through Squattober for
Yeah, exactly. We're in the middle of Squattober right now.
In the middle of Squattober,
got December coming up. So.
But no, my goal with that is to, again, like I was talking about at the very beginning, that progress, that progression. Let's see if I can beat last year.
Right.
Which, will be more than Charlie. No.
We shall see. There'll be a video.
We may have to have a follow-up on that, sir.
Yeah, follow-up episode.
Exactly, talking about this particular lift. So. But seriously, why did the two of y'all latch onto this exercise so much? I mean, of all the exercises out there, typically you've got, our squat person's got to be Hunter. When you say, at the end of the day, he's going to squat, and his success proves it. But typically with guys, it's going to be bench press. It's bench press day every day. And there, a guy had a podcast about that. So bench press day is every single day. But y'all's is deadlift.
Yeah.
Can you answer that?
Yeah. Going back to what I said earlier, it's just, to me, it's just something instinctual about, loading up. To me, it's going to be that barbell, and just picking it up off the floor, and it either is coming up off the floor or it's not. And there's just something, I don't know, it just feels, you feel powerful when you can just do it, set it down gently, don't drop it. Yeah. But when you do it and you can do it well, it's just there's no other feeling like it,
How about for you?
I'd say pretty similar, I feel like it's one of those exercises that it's still pretty new to me. Growing up in high school, even junior college, we didn't really deadlift. We did a lot of power cleans, and we did squat and bench. But deadlift is still fairly new to me, so I think there's that, that novelty. It's just something new that I've been working on. I've been squatting for a while, and I like squatting, but I'm not the best at it. So I feel like deadlifting, I'm kind of gotten better at it, and I've seen the progress. And so, but like Josh said, just picking something up off the floor, and just that feeling of, you start picking up off the floor, and it's like slowly moving, and then it shoots up, and then you just get jacked up. And last year when we did December together, both of us hit PRs, and we were just amped. I think we were the only two up here, but
bouncing
we were just
off the walls.
You were chest bumping, and music was blasting, and we just had chalk everywhere. It was great.
It was so funny. I'll tell you this about that. My wife Mackenzie was on the other side of the facility, and I run over there, and she's like, "What are you doing? You nuts?"
Yeah. Well, actually, there's a method to our madness when we're talking about that. You may think they're crazy, and you're not alone. But what you're hearing right here, and you're hearing from our trainers say it, and that is that this speaks to both their heads. And we talk about this all the time. The best exercises you can do are the ones you like and the ones you enjoy. And dare I say, the ones that make you feel the best about yourself. Whether that's making you feel younger, making you feel more powerful, what have you, building that confidence, because that's where it all starts. I've said many times on the podcast that nobody comes to us for a physical reason. They come to us strictly because something in here. And this particular exercise happens to answer it for both of y'all. We're going to have to recap on a podcast in December and let everybody know how December went and if everybody's still standing. We
shall see.
Whether or not we hit our PR. So, Josh, Charlie, I appreciate y'all being on with us. And listen, if you have any questions about this particular, it's complicated. It's complicated to get it through listening to a podcast. We do have a video that's going to be coming out to complement this podcast to show you the different maneuvers and what have you involved in the deadlift. But it's a complicated lift. But we do highly encourage people to get involved in this and conduct this exercise no matter where you are on the age scale. If you have any questions about this, please reach out to me at 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That's our website, our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter at TeamPE. December's coming up, getting ready with the deadlift, and the deadlift is just one more exercise we use to help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.